The night I locked the study door and hid the last set of documents, my hands were trembling so hard that the papers almost slipped from my fingers. The house was quiet, too quiet for a home that once shook with Michael's laughter. My sons, Angel and Milton, were asleep upstairs, or at least I thought they were. I could still hear Milton's voice from earlier, sharp and impatient. "Mom, we need to know everything Dad left behind. Every dime, every property. We are not kids anymore." They spoke like beneficiaries, not sons mourning their father. They had already argued over who would take Michael's truck, his gun safe, even his old wristwatch. That was when I knew I could not disclose everything. Not the land outside Bismarck, not the second account Michael opened in my name the year before he passed, not the rental property he told me to keep safe until you truly know their hearts. I closed the drawer, turned the key, and whispered to the darkness, "Forgive me, Michael, but our sons are not the men you believed they would be." What I did not know then was that someone else was watching, someone who knew about what I hid and why. Before I go any further, I want to pause for just a moment to appreciate every single one of you watching this. To all my returning viewers and those who have already subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And to everyone who is new or has not yet subscribed, I am truly grateful you are here. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because your support is the fuel and energy that keeps this channel going strong. Please do not forget to drop your thoughts in the comments as the story unfolds. I love reading your reactions and seeing how you connect with these journeys. Now let me take you back to where everything truly began. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 56 years old, born and raised in North Dakota, and I have lived most of my life in a quiet part of Fargo. My husband, Michael Carter, passed away 6 months ago after a silent and stubborn year-long battle with pancreatic cancer. He was 60 when he died, a strong, broad-shouldered man whose presence filled a room even when he said nothing. We had 2 sons, Angel and Milton. Angel is 31, the quieter one. He works in construction management and has always believed he deserved more than what he has. He is the kind of man who smiles at you but watches your hands when you reach into your purse. Milton is 28, the fiery one, always competing, always pushing. He sells cars in Bismarck, dresses like he is wealthy, and talks like the world owes him something. When Michael died, the brothers embraced each other at the funeral, but something in that hug was missing. Their grief seemed selective. They kept glancing at the lawyer, Mr. Harper, who was seated 2 rows back, as if the next chapter of their lives depended not on healing but inheritance. Michael and I never raised our boys to be greedy. At least, I didn't think we had. But something inside them changed over the years. Or maybe it was always there, waiting for the right moment to crawl out. 3 days after we buried Michael, Angel showed up at the house with a notepad and a serious face. He didn't even ask how I was sleeping. He went straight to the point. "Mom, Dad had the house, the trucks, the life insurance, and the land outside Bismarck. What else should we know about?" We. Not you or us. We, as if I were already a bystander in my own life. Milton arrived the next afternoon. He walked in without knocking and said, "I think we should meet with Harper and get the numbers straight. The sooner we see everything, the better." Better for who? I didn't argue. I simply listened. Inside, I felt Michael's voice echoing in my memory, the conversation he had 2 months before he passed. He was sitting on the porch, his skin pale, his eyes still sharp. "If anything happens to me, do not disclose everything at once. There are things you must hold back until you know who is with you and who is waiting for you to fall." Then he gave me a key, a small brass key that opened a drawer the boys didn't know existed. That drawer held documents to things only Michael and I knew about. A rental property on the edge of Grand Forks, 2 sets of government bonds, and a savings account that could cover my needs for the rest of my life. The boys knew nothing about those. A week after the funeral, I noticed Milton hovering around Michael's study. That room was always locked, and my sons knew better than to enter it. But I heard footsteps when I was in the kitchen, and by the time I got to the hallway, Milton was walking away, his eyes fixed downward. "Did you need something in there?" I asked. He smiled. "Just memories, Mom. Just memories." I didn't believe him. The will hadn't even been read yet, and already there was a tension in the air, like frost creeping silently across glass. Angel was quieter than usual, but he texted me twice asking if I had found any paperwork they should know about. I replied, "We'll let Harper handle everything." But I didn't tell them what I had locked away. Not yet. Not until I understood what they were really capable of. And I was about to learn that in a way that would cut deeper than any funeral could. The morning of the will reading was cold, even for North Dakota in early spring. The air felt like it had teeth. I arrived at Mr. Harper's office wearing Michael's old charcoal coat, the one that still held the faintest scent of his cologne. Angel and Milton were already there when I walked in, sitting on opposite sides of the lobby like rival attorneys, not brothers. Milton was tapping his foot and pretending not to be impatient. Angel was scrolling on his phone, his jaw tight. Neither of them wore black anymore. It had been only 8 days since Michael's funeral, but they had already transitioned from mourning to anticipation. I greeted them quietly and took my seat, clutching my purse a little closer. Inside, the key Michael had given me months ago was tucked into a sewn-in pocket only I knew existed. I had barely slept, turning his words over and over in my mind. "Do not disclose everything at once." Mr. Harper came out of his office with a stiff smile and invited us in. The room was modest. Mahogany shelves lined with dusty law books, a thick rug in shades of rust and cream, 3 leather chairs facing his desk. It was the same room where Michael and I had signed our first mortgage 27 years ago. As we settled, I saw the way my sons leaned forward, eyes sharp with expectation. Harper cleared his throat and began. "Per the wishes of the late Michael Carter," he said, adjusting his glasses, "this will outlines the distribution of his declared estate." Declared estate, that phrase alone carried weight. He started with the house. Michael and I owned it jointly, so it passed entirely to me. Angel shifted slightly, as though that was not the outcome he hoped for. Milton kept a blank face. Then came the vehicles. Michael's older Ford truck was willed to Angel, and Milton was left the newer Dodge, along with the tools in the garage. They nodded, but neither looked satisfied. There was mention of a modest life insurance policy. Harper stated clearly, "This is to be split equally between the surviving spouse and the 2 sons." That perked Milton up. Angel leaned back, eyes closing for half a beat. Then Harper paused. "As for the land near Bismarck, there is a separate note from your husband, Evelyn. He states that the transfer of ownership will be discussed privately with you." Angel's brows drew together. "What do you mean privately?" Harper gave a calm smile. "It means your father left instructions for your mother alone regarding that property. It is not included in the shared division." Milton's voice cut like a knife, though he tried to sound composed. "Why would he do that? We are his children." "And I am his wife," I said quietly. The reading continued. There were no mentions of bonds, no mention of the property in Grand Forks, no trace of the secondary accounts. Michael had prepared the will carefully, only declaring the core elements his sons were entitled to share. By the time Harper finished, the temperature in the room felt several degrees colder. "Is that all?" Angel asked, though the disappointment in his tone barely stayed masked. "For the declared assets, yes," Harper replied. I felt the room pulse with unspoken questions. My sons looked at each other, then at me. Not with warmth, not with shared grief, with something closer to calculation. We left Harper's office in silence. Outside, the wind slapped my cheeks and turned my breath to mist. I walked toward my car, but before I could open the door, Angel called out behind me. "Mom, I turned slowly. He approached with a half smile that looked manufactured. So, about that land near Bismarck, what exactly are Dad's instructions? I will let you know once I speak with Harper again, I said calmly. Milton joined him, his expression less cautious. We just don't want any surprises. Neither do I. They said nothing else, but Milton's eyes flicked to my purse for a split second. That moment told me more than any words could have. That night, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at Michael's empty chair. Anger rose in my chest, not only at my sons, but at the realization of how quickly grief can decay into greed. I poured myself a small glass of wine and went into the study, the one room no one else was allowed to enter. I turned the key and stepped inside. The space still smelled faintly of cedar and old books. Michael's grandfather clock ticked steadily against the wall. I opened the locked drawer he had shown me and took out the file labeled in his handwriting, "Hold until ready." Inside were documents to the rental home in Grand Forks, bank statements from accounts the boys didn't know existed, and handwritten notes about our investments. I ran my fingers over the papers and whispered to myself, I am not ready to trust them. It was past midnight when I finally switched off the desk lamp and prepared to leave the study. But as I opened the door, I froze. There, at the end of the hallway, stood Angel. He tried to pretend he had just been passing through, but his eyes were locked onto the room behind me. "You are up late," he said. "So are you." He didn't move closer, but the silence between us had teeth. "He just want to make sure you aren't overwhelmed," he said, too gently. "I'm fine." He lingered a moment, then walked away. I watched him disappear into the darkness and knew something was shifting beneath the surface. 2 days later, I received a phone call from an unknown number. At first, I considered ignoring it, but something made me answer. A man's voice, calm and composed, said, "Mrs. Carter, we should talk. Your husband prepared more than you know, and not everyone has your best interest at heart." Before I could ask who he was, the line went dead. And just like that, I knew the secrets I was holding were not as hidden as I believed. The silence after that mysterious phone call clung to me like damp air. I stood in my kitchen, the cordless phone still in my hand, the refrigerator humming in the background like nothing in the world had shifted, but something had. I replayed the voice in my mind, calm, assured, and disturbingly informed. Your husband prepared more than you know, and not everyone has your best interest at heart. For 2 hours, I sat at the table, trying to place the man behind that voice. Was it someone Michael once trusted? A banker? A lawyer? Someone from his past? No matter how I searched my memory, I found no match. But something became very clear. Someone else knew about the undisclosed assets, and that meant my sons were not the only people I had to worry about. The next morning, I drove to the cemetery. The sky was overcast, the kind that pressed down on you like a weighted blanket. Michael's grave was still fresh, the grass not yet rooted over the soil. I stood there, hugging my coat to my body. I am trying, Michael, but something is not right. As I stood there, footsteps crunched through the gravel behind me. I turned and saw Angel approaching, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. He did not look surprised to see me. "Milton figured you might come here today," he said. I frowned. Why is he trying to track my movements? Angel hesitated but did not deny it. "He thinks you are hiding things. He thinks Dad trusted you with details we should all know." I looked at my son carefully. "And what do you think, Angel?" His lips parted, but he could not answer. His silence told me enough. Michael once said, "Trust is not what a person says. It is what they refuse to deny." In that moment, I understood exactly where Angel's loyalties leaned. Before either of us could speak again, Angel's phone buzzed. He checked it quickly and muttered, "I need to go. We will talk later." He walked away before I could call him back.
But something about that moment stayed with me. He had not come to mourn. He had come to monitor. That evening, I called Mr. Harper. I did not mention the phone call or my suspicion. Instead, I requested a private appointment to discuss additional instructions Michael might have left. He agreed to meet the following day. When I entered his office again, this time alone, he seemed expectant. "I wondered when you would call," he said. I stiffened. "What do you mean by that?" He opened a file drawer and withdrew a brown envelope sealed with a strip of black wax. "Your husband gave me this 2 months before he passed. He instructed me not to give it to you until after the will was read, and only if you came on your own accord, without your sons." My breath caught. Harper slid the envelope across the desk. I broke the seal and withdrew a folded letter in Michael's handwriting. "Evelyn, if you are reading this, then you came to Harper willingly. That means you have seen what our sons have become, and you are protecting what must remain safe. There are assets they cannot control. I have reasons tied to someone I once trusted, but later feared. This is not only about them. There is another player in this story, and I believe he may try to influence the boys for his own gain. His name is Peter Lawson. I hope I am wrong about him, but if I am not, do not confront him alone. He is not who he pretends to be. Love, Michael." I read the name 3 times. Peter Lawson. A chill went up my spine. That name was not unknown to me. Peter Lawson was not only my husband's oldest friend, he was also the man who introduced us. He was at our wedding. He was godfather to Angel. He visited Michael during his illness more than our sons did. And 3 weeks before Michael died, Peter stopped coming around entirely. I looked up at Harper. "Did you know about this?" He nodded slowly. "Your husband suspected that Peter had his own interest in certain properties your sons might inherit. He told me that if Peter could not get to him, he would try to get to them." I pressed the letter flat on the desk. My heart was beating like a drum in my ears. Why did Michael not tell me sooner? Harper's expression softened. "He said he did not want you to carry the weight until you had to." I leaned back, shaken. What kind of interest would Peter have? "That," Harper said carefully, "is a question I believe you will soon see answered on its own." I left the office in a fog, the cold biting at my cheeks, Michael's voice echoing in my memory. Do not confront him alone. When I returned home, Milton's car was already parked in the driveway, engine still warm. I unlocked the front door and found him standing in the living room, arms crossed. "Where were you?" he asked. "Is that your business?" I replied evenly. He smirked, though his eyes were cold. "Well, it might be, since you're handling things that affect all of us." Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. He and I both turned. When I opened it, the last person I expected to see stood on my porch in a dark coat and confident stance. Peter Lawson. His smile was faint and unsettling. "Evelyn," he said smoothly, as though he had every right in the world to be there. "We need to talk." Milton stepped forward like he had been waiting for him. "Good," Milton said. "I already told him you'd be home by now." And in that moment, the ground shifted beneath me.
Peter Lawson stepped into my house like he had never left it. He glanced around the living room, the photographs on the wall, and even the folded throw blanket on the sofa, as though he were inspecting something he already owned. Milton closed the door behind him and leaned against it, crossing his arms. There was no guilt, no hesitation in his expression. Angel was not home yet, but I could sense that whatever this was, he was in on it. I stood near the fireplace, my fingers brushing against the edge of the mantelpiece. "What do you want, Peter?" He smiled faintly, like a man about to negotiate a deal he already believed he had won. "I want a conversation, one you have been avoiding. I did not know there was one to have." He looked at Milton briefly before turning back to me. "Michael and I discussed several matters before he passed. You were not always present for those talks." I held his gaze, refusing to show fear. "Michael left me everything I needed to know." He chuckled softly. "No, Evelyn, he left you what he hoped would keep you safe. But let us not pretend he told you everything." Before I could reply, the front door opened again. Angel stepped in and froze when he saw us gathered. Then his jaw tightened, and he closed the door quietly. I looked from one son to the other. "Did you bring him here?" Milton answered without blinking. "We reached out to him days ago, after the will reading. We thought he could help straighten out whatever you are hiding." Peter's smile deepened, and I told them I knew their father's affairs better than anyone. I felt anger burn through my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "You were his friend, not his executor. You have no claim to anything." He looked at me almost pityingly. "Michael made investments years ago, some in joint ventures, some in land, some in trusts. He and I were partners long before you understood what he was building. And yet," I said slowly, "he deliberately kept your name out of everything I now control." That wiped his smirk from his face. Angel stepped closer, tension rising. "Mom, if there are assets you have not told us about, you need to lay everything out before this gets ugly." I turned to him. "Is that a threat?" He did not answer. Peter took a slow breath and pulled a folded document from his coat pocket. "Your husband and I co-owned land near the Red River Valley. He told me he would transfer his stake to your sons eventually. We assumed it would all pass through you first, but you have not been transparent." I did not even glance at the paper. "Michael revoked his partnership with you 3 years ago. If you think I do not know that, you are underestimating me." His jaw tightened. Milton looked confused. Angel looked uncertain. I continued. "He removed your name and placed those holdings into a private trust under my authority, and he wrote your name only once more, in a warning." Angel frowned. "A warning about what?" I met his eyes with a steady stare. "Michael Lawson would use both of you as leverage if he could not get to Michael first." The room went eerily still. Peter's expression shifted then. Not guilt, but annoyance at being exposed. "You are playing a dangerous game, Evelyn." I stepped closer. "No, Peter, I am ending one." Suddenly, Angel spoke, his voice lower than before. "Is that true? Did Dad really remove you from everything?" Peter ignored him, still staring at me. "You don't have the resources to defend what you are holding, Evelyn, but your sons do. With my guidance, they—" I cut him off coldly. "You are done guiding my family." Milton scoffed. "Mom, you can't push him out. If he has documents—" "He doesn't," I replied. "Michael updated every title before he died. Everything with Peter's name on it was voided, and I have the revised filings. So unless you want to be dragged into legal exposure with him, step aside." Peter turned to my sons with controlled irritation. "She's bluffing." "For your sake, pray I am not." Angel looked between us, uncertainty creeping into his eyes. Milton's facade of confidence began to crack. Peter made a move toward the hallway as if to corner me privately, but before he could take another step, I pulled out a second letter, one Michael had written to be used only if Peter interfered. I handed it to Angel. "Read it." He hesitated, then opened it carefully. Milton leaned in to look over his shoulder. Michael's voice spilled into the room through his own handwriting.
If Peter approaches either of you after I am gone, know this: he is not working in your interest. He is positioning himself to take control of the assets I secured for your mother. He lost his right to partnership when he tried to manipulate our sons. Protect her before you protect anything else." Angel's face went pale. Milton stepped back from Peter like he had touched a hot stove. Peter, however, did not flinch. Letters can be forged. I gave a slow, calm smile. "Then explain why Harper also has a copy with your forged signature on the revocation documents you tried to file behind Michael's back." That finally broke him. His eyes flickered with something I had never seen before: panic. Without another word, he turned and left the house, his coat brushing against the doorframe like a retreating shadow. Milton muttered something under his breath and disappeared into the kitchen. Angel sat down heavily on the couch, the letter still in his hand. For the first time since Michael's death, the house was quiet for the right reasons. In the weeks that followed, my sons withdrew from their plans. They were not suddenly transformed into perfect men, but they were humbled. They stopped demanding. They stopped prying. A slow quiet replaced their urgency. One morning, Angel came by alone. He stood in the doorway and said, "If Dad trusted you, then I will back off. I'm sorry." Milton took longer to come around, but eventually he said, "I got carried away. I thought you were cutting us out." I told them both the truth. I did not hide the assets to punish you. I did it to protect what your father built and to see your hearts clearly. Whether they understood the depth of that or not, time would tell. Looking back now, I'm grateful I did not disclose everything. Grief reveals people. Greed exposes them. Silence tests them. And foresight protects those who deserve protection. Michael knew more than he said, and because I listened, truly listened, not only to his words, but to his warnings, I avoided a disaster that could have torn everything apart. Sometimes love is not softness. Sometimes love is stewardship. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep a secret until the truth is ready to show itself. If this story moved you in any way, please do not forget to leave a comment with your thoughts. I would love to hear your reactions, your reflections, and what you would have done in my place. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so more people can experience these powerful stories. Your support means more than you know, and it keeps this channel alive. Thank you for listening.